Welcome to the Putnam County Library Lunch and Learn. Today we're joined by Ryan Dalton, who will be talking about the Restoring Childhood Initiative. Take it away, Ryan.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Almost said good morning, but I guess it's afternoon now. This will be fairly casual, even though I have a slideshow and some talking points, so I don't ramble too much. But it can also be interactive, and if there are any questions or things that come up as we go, we can talk about it. But for me, one of the things that is, I think, special about this particular presentation is that it is in the library, and this to me, kind of a side note from the whole initiative and things, shows me personally the power that books can have, the power that literacy has, because it was literally just me reading this book and saying, like, we need to do something, and the community has now gotten behind it and done it. And for me, I'm a middle school teacher, and I don't see kids reading as much, and I know the power that books have, and I know the power that literature has. And so, it was just a moment where I was kind of preparing for this a little bit and thinking about beyond everything else, which it is connected, at least adjacent to it, but it's amazing to think about the power of a book and the power that it can have. And I hope that as this grows, that we'll see it be incredibly powerful. So that was my little advertisement for books in general, and then we'll talk about the specific book. But for those that don't know, I'm Ryan Dalton. I grew up here in Cookeville. I went to Northeast Elementary. At the time, it was the old junior high school, which no longer exists, so sad. And then Cookeville High School. I was actually the first group that went to the new high school, and I call it the new high school, but my kids call it the old high school, my students. I never had to be a freshman because at that time, the junior high went to ninth grade. And so my last year at the junior high, and the last year the junior high existed, I was in ninth grade, so I got to be the top dog. And then my first year at the high school was a 10th grader, and we had freshmen under us. So somehow I escaped that rite of passage, being a freshman. I directly after high school, I went over to Cape Town, South Africa, and went with the youth program and was there for 3 months, and then went to India for 3 months. And while I was there, I met the kids that live on the streets in Cape Town, and moved back there and worked with them for 10 years. Most predominantly just working on the ground, getting to know the culture, the system, everything that was going on. Did a lot of, out of that, activism and advocacy work and grassroots organizing to try to work at some of the bigger systemic issues that the kids, maybe they didn't know they were facing, but that were negatively impacting them. So I did that for 10 years, and then moved back here, did freelance writing for about 1.5 years, trying to figure out what was next, which it just paid the bills, but I decided I don't want to write for other people. I like to write for myself, but not for other people to tell me what to write. I'm a little stubborn and not good with that kind of thing. So then I went to New York City to pursue a master's degree. I got my undergrad in Cape Town as a social worker. Went to New York and got my master's degree and taught full-time while I was doing that. So my undergrad's in social work and social development, and I got my master's in special education. And taught in a school in Brooklyn, New York for 4 years, where I was fortunate enough to be a part of a school that went from 100% traditional punitive model of discipline to full restorative alternative discipline in the course of the 4 years I was there. And my 4th year, I was the restorative justice coordinator, which was a really amazing experience. And so I moved away from there, taught in Montgomery, Alabama at a high school for 4 years, and then I've been back here for 5 years. And I've continued to work with New York City to do education consultation, and specifically around restorative practices and things. So just a little bit about who I am. I feel like that's important to kind of establish before I just ramble on. But as I said, For me, in my life as well, and I will just go ahead and put it out there that I was a struggling reader my whole life. Not because I couldn't read, but because extreme ADHD, which in the 80s and 90s wasn't really diagnosed at all, if at all. But I would read a page 9-10 times and still have no idea what I was reading. And that was my experience, so I hated it. And in the summers, I wanted to be outside as much, well, all the time I wanted to be outside as much as possible, but definitely in the summers. And I would actually see my mom forcing me to go to my room and read as punishment. And I would sit there and she would actually quiz me on what I read, so I had to actually read.
Well, she's a writing teacher. So
Yeah, exactly. There was no escaping that. So, reading has at that age especially always felt like hard work, and I really envy people who say, "Oh, after a long day of work, I'm just gonna go and relax on my couch and read a book and relax." I'm like, that's not relaxing. It literally takes all my energy just to get my brain to focus. So it was only in my adult life. It was actually my first year at school, at university, that I read like 8 books in a row. And they were like, that was the first book that I decided to read was Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, which is like 800 pages long. So it was a long walk to freedom for me as well. But yeah, it was really funny because I was being told to read all this stuff for school, and I was meanwhile not reading much of that, but reading the things that I wanted to read. But as an adult, I developed strategies to help me focus, to help me learn to get my mind straight on reading. All of that to say, since I've pitched this community-wide book study, I understand that everybody has a different relationship with reading, and I really hope that we can make this as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, whether people love to dive in on the deepest levels with this text, or whether they don't want to read it at all. So that's kind of the aim. But this is kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm going back and forth, but as I said, this has shown the power that a book can have. Which, yes, sir.
Is this going to be more like Pulp Fiction?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's the least bloody Quentin Tarantino movie so far. But yeah, I was actually doing a workshop for New York City, a school that I was working with. And I was talking about a couple of books that I had recently read that I was recommending, and one of the participants, and this was in around February this year, and one of the participants was like, "Have you read Anxious Generation? You should really pick it up and check it out." And I was like, "No, I've never even heard of it." So I ordered it, and it kind of sat there for a little bit, as they do, and then we got on spring break, and I started reading it, and I started and finished it during spring break. And when I finished it, I immediately emailed Corby King, a couple of people that are with student wellness, and said, "We have to do something. This is urgent. We need to do something about this. Let's do a community-wide book study." And his immediate response was, "Oh, that sounds like a good thing for Catherine Weisinger at the library." And I was like, there she is. And I was like, "Oh no, I intend to involve her as well, but this needs to come from everyone. It needs to come from the school system, because really, of any organization in town, the school system is the most impacted by this issue that the book speaks about, through the students, through teachers' engagement with students and the parents. The school system is the most impacted by this. We'll talk about the impact in a minute, but I emailed back and I was like, "Oh yeah, it'd be great to have her, but we need to get everybody involved." And he, then I think at that point he passed my email on to the board, and Jill Ramsey, board member, contacted me and said, "Hey, I've read this, or I just started this, let's do this." And that was March, and so right at the end of the school year, the busiest time of year, we decided to start a community-wide initiative. But it's, yeah, so that's what's been going on. So let's just look at some of the things. So since then, and as I said, we're gonna kind of go back and forth a little bit, but since then, what I've tried to do is involve as many people as possible and get as many voices as possible, again, to make this as accessible as possible to everyone. Because I'm a firm believer, for the most part, the vast majority of people that I've met, I don't think people operate out of ill intentions. I think I believe the good in most people. And I think when we know better, we do better. And I think for me, even things that I thought I knew and felt pretty familiar with, there were deeper things going on than I even realized as a teacher and a parent. So some of the stuff we're looking at is, as he explains, this says childhood is quietly disappearing, but in some ways it's not so quiet, and I would also probably not use a present tense verb there. I would say, like, in a lot of ways childhood has disappeared. And ways that that's showing up, since 2010, which is what Jonathan Haidt, the author, calls the time of the great rewiring and the rise of the phone-based childhood, we've seen anxiety and depression and other mental health issues exponentially increase. We've seen unstructured, unsupervised play also exponentially decrease, and screen time of all ages, including adults and babies, has skyrocketed. And so some of these stats are pretty humbling to me, because they say that the average American, this is the average American teen, but the statistics are pretty similar for young children as well. But the average American teen spends 7 to 9 hours a day on a screen. Now, that already sounds overwhelming to me. But when you think about it, this statistic does not include their time in school. So I don't know if you're aware, but a vast majority of the day, students, especially in Putnam County and all over the country, are spending a large portion of their day on computers at the bare minimum.
Yeah, can I ask a question about that? Has there been any discussion in reducing that? Because that has been a frustration for us as a parent. And our kids don't know how to type, so not only are they
Yeah, it's very odd. Yeah, and I can validate that as a teacher. It's very interesting for a generation that has been raised on tech. They're actually not as tech savvy as we think they are. Now, they know the workarounds. If you put some lockdown browser and tell them, like, you can't get on anything else, they'll get on anything else. But type an essay, that's where they struggle. So that is part of this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Does that include television hours?
Yeah, so these
Computer stuff.
this statistic does include television, and for all intents and purposes of this conversation, the sort of negative impact that we're talking about, that is having this really negative impact on mental health, is internet-based devices, which would include tablets that toddlers use to smartphones. But this hours on the screen would include TV time, but kids are not watching TV as much anymore as they used to. But yes, there is, so with the school thing, I don't know if there is actually an active, intentional effort to reduce that, but part of this movement eventually will be that. But yeah, so 7 to 9 hours outside of school time, which is a full-time job, like the equivalent of a full-time job. And then this, like, juxtaposition always makes me feel, I don't know what, but less than 10 minutes a day engaging in outdoor unstructured activities. And so we also think, I think this generation is more active than ever before, especially with travel ball and all of this stuff. But that is structured activities. That's a time where you still have adults telling you how to do something, telling you what to do. There's very specific, rigid rules and regulations, and if you don't do that, you can't even take part in that if you don't abide by those rules. So this is specifically unstructured play, just like playing in the yard, like I'm sure we all did back in the day, roaming around the neighborhood, getting in the sewers. I mean, me and Catherine, we were neighbors, and I was best friends with her brother growing up, and we were climbing through the sewage pipes and doing all kinds of stuff, kick the can, all that stuff. So yeah, kids these days are spending less than 10 minutes a day engaging in this unstructured activity. And what is interesting is when we talk about smartphones and internet-based devices like tablets, people automatically think, oh, it's just the screen time, it's just that is the problem, which that is a huge part of the problem. And there's all kinds of negative impacts that we can talk about just from being on the screens. But it's not just what they're exposed to on the screens, which is a lot. Jonathan Haidt refers to it as an overexposure to the virtual world and an underexposure to the real world. So they're being exposed to a lot of stuff, a lot of which they're not developmentally ready to see. But it's also what Jonathan Haidt speaks about, not just what they're exposed to on the screens, but what they're not being exposed to in the real world. This might seem kind of odd until I explain this, but so Jonathan Haidt in the book speaks about a concept called anti-fragility, which I'm sure some of you have heard about. But all living organisms, for the most part, are anti-fragile beings. So something like these jars are fragile, and if I drop them, they'll break. But living organisms are anti-fragile beings, and they actually need a bit of struggle. They need a bit of difficulty to actually not only survive, but to thrive. And so I'm going to actually read a portion, but he gives this great example of a biosphere. It was a social science experiment called Biosphere 2 out in Arizona. And it was all these like top scientists that got together. They wanted to create this perfect ecosystem. So they had plants, water, all the things, and it was supposed to create this perfect self-sustaining environment. And it was a biosphere that was completely contained. And they even had, I think, like 8 people live in there. So they started it, things were going well, things were growing, the water cycle was happening and all that. And then the trees started getting larger, and then the trees mysteriously started falling over. And the scientists were perplexed. And every time I say this, I'm like, I believe it takes a lot to perplex a scientist. So, because that's their whole job. So they're like, what is going on? And they're really looking into it. And what they realize is the trees, like all other organisms, are anti-fragile organisms. And they actually, without the wind in the real world, in this perfect environment, they did not have the struggle and the resistance that they needed to become strong. And so he describes, which I'll read the portion, he describes what happens with trees out, not in a biosphere, where a young sapling can be blown so hard that it almost falls over and is completely bent to the ground. But when it stands back up, that process creates a harder trunk and deeper roots. So he says, the designers had not realized that young trees need wind to grow properly. When the wind blows, it bends the tree, which tugs the roots on the windward side and compresses the wood on the other side. In response, the root system expands to provide a firmer anchor where it is needed. And the compressed wood cells change their structure to become stronger and firmer. This altered cell structure is called reaction wood, or sometimes stress wood. Trees that are exposed to strong winds early in life become trees that can withstand even stronger winds when full grown. Conversely, trees that are raised in a protective greenhouse sometimes fall over from their own weight before they even reach maturity. Stress wood is a perfect metaphor for children, who also need to experience frequent stressors in order to become strong adults. So he speaks more about anti-fragility and that need, but it's not the bootstraps mentality where we're saying like kids need to be abused and we have to abuse them to make them more resilient, but it's the natural resistance that happens through unstructured play that occurs that kids need. So going out in the yard and playing, getting injured, figuring it out, drinking from the water hose, traveling across the city without your parents knowing on a bicycle, and figuring it out as you go, and problem solving, all of that builds resilience. And our kids in spending 7 to 9 hours a day on screens and inside and less than 10 minutes a day in unstructured play are completely missing out on this experience, which means developmentally, not only are there cognitive things that are happening from what they're being exposed to on the screens, there's also this cognitive thing that's happening that is causing them to not be resilient in the real world. Our trees are falling over, and the children are our trees. And coupled with this is this concept that Jonathan Haidt speaks about of this idea of safetyism and fearful parenting, where we have now become helicopter parents to the max, and we don't let kids just go out in the yard. We don't let kids cross the street by themselves or walk around in the neighborhood. As a culture, there are people who still do that, but us as a culture, as a society, we're doing that less and less. And in the book, he also even explains that a lot of that is based on this culture of fear, this safetyism, that is by this continuous news cycle that we see of like, your kid's gonna be kidnapped, everybody's gonna be injured and raped, and all this constant news feed that we see. And social media makes it worse. And in that, we think we're protecting kids, but what we're doing is we're basically robbing them of real world experiences, and then we're throwing them onto these devices where they are much more likely to encounter a sexual predator or someone who is intending on harming them in some way, or just content that they're not ready to be exposed to. So we've, again, that overexposure to the virtual world and underexposure to the real world. And it's those two things combined that is the real danger and what's really causing our kids to not be prepared for the real world. He even speaks about, before I even get onto this, how we use crime and this like fear of all these crime stats to validate why we're not sending kids outside to play. But he said crime statistics actually now are far better than they were in the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s when we were just playing out. They've drastically improved. And one of the reasons he said is because a lot of the specific predators and things have moved online. So a lot of that stuff that they were doing in the real world has moved online, which is frightening, but it's also like, that's what we're keeping the kid inside because we don't want them to get kidnapped, but then we're throwing them in the next room where the world has access to them, whether it be through Roblox or YouTube. I mean, just the comment section of YouTube is a place where a kid can meet someone who's wanting to do wrong to them. I'm not gonna get into the whole fear of that as well, but it is an aspect. So in the schools and at homes with kids, we're seeing all these various things, not only the rise in anxiety, rise in depression, rise in certain mental health struggles. We're seeing inattention as at an all-time high, emotional dysregulation. Students and young people are really having trouble regulating their emotions because they haven't had that practice in the real world. And there's a difference between online connection and actual communion. And so they feel more connected than any generation ever before because they have thousands of friends on whatever, app, Snapchat, Instagram, bless you. But they don't have any real connection with anybody. We see avoidance of struggle. I can talk about this as a teacher in the classroom. Students, this generation really avoids struggle. Down to like some of the most simple tasks. And I'll hand out something that we're about to work on, and a student will call me over, Mr. Dalton, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, did you read the instructions? And they're like, no. And I'm like, how do you know you don't know how to do it? But it really is just this complete avoidance of any type of extra work, any type of struggle. And I don't blame them. I'm never one to blame the kids. We've allowed this without realizing it. Again, I don't think we've thought about this and thought we're doing this, but unintentionally we've allowed it. Behavioral disruptions. So in schools, we're seeing a lot more behavioral disruptions. And I will say, this is now, I've taught 4 plus 4 plus 5, is that 13? So I've taught for 13 years in American schools, from Brooklyn, New York, Montgomery, Alabama, to here in Cookeville, Tennessee. And vast majority, I would say 90-something%, don't quote me on this isn't actual research, but 90-something% of those big school-wide disruptions, whether it be conflict, fight, bullying, all of these things are now connected to smartphones in some way, or the internet. And it's very different than how when we were as kids, where you can say something unkind to someone, and then they say something unkind back, and then it's kind of over. There might be a group of kids who perpetuate this, a teacher finds out, and they're like, cut it out, and then it is. Or maybe you meet at the tracks like we did at the junior high, you fight it out, and then it's really over. And then if it really evolves from there and they want a rematch, you have one rematch, and then it's really over, from there. Now, these things start online, they get spread, and they are just perpetuated constantly and consistently. And then other conflict can start in the comment section of a fight video or a post. So it's not only created this thing where kids cannot escape this reality, whereas even if you had the worst experience in school, when you went home that night, when we were young, that was it. You were home, you were away from that. Kids can't escape it now. They have their phones. They get home and something happened at school, then they get notification, and this thing is building and it's bubbling. So they literally can't escape it. But it's causing all sorts of behavioral stuff in the school setting, from, like I said, filming fights, creating fights, causing fights, these social media trends where they're ripping toilets off the wall, and well, that's a very male-centered thing to say, but women out of the ground, off the wall, wherever the toilet is. So all these different behavior issues that we never saw before have not only been created, but are just perpetually happening and unescapable for the kids. I am just very thankful that I grew up at a time where YouTube, social media did not exist. I can't imagine what it's like to be a kid at this age. And they get caught in these situations, and they say ridiculous things sometimes because their frontal lobe is not fully developed. So the things that we would just say as a kid, and then it's done, they're saying, and it's going on the internet, and it's living forever. So someone says oh, that guy made me so mad, I'm gonna kill him. Not meaning he's really gonna do that, but then he sends that on Snapchat to a friend. His friend takes a screenshot, that gets posted, it gets sent to everybody in their network. Before you know it, there are thousands of people with this screenshot that says John is gonna kill so-and-so. John never really even meant that, but now the school has to do a threat assessment, the parents get pulled in, it turns into this big thing. And that's just one example of how these things can perpetuate. It's further complicated with situations of romantic and love relationships with the kids, because they're kids and we were in those same types of relationships. However, we weren't filming them, we weren't taking pictures of ourselves, and we weren't putting that out there. And so then there's that whole aspect of they're putting harmful content of themselves and their friends out on the internet. It's a really cause for schools all types of more troubling situations that did not exist when we were kids. Like I said, I'm really thankful that I did not grow up with that. And I think about the movie, what was a book, but also I'm talking about the movie portrayal of Doubt, where it's about a priest who's been accused of something, and one of the parishioners, that's a difficult word for me, parishioners, has been a part of spreading this, and he takes her up to the roof of the building, and he gets a feather pillow, and he tells her, all right, rip it open and let the feathers out. So she does, and the feathers stream out into the city, and you just see this beautiful shot of feathers just going all into the city. And then he says, okay, now bring them back, which is impossible. But this is happening with the most simple things, whether it's an image that a kid doesn't want shared, an image that they're sharing willingly. There's even many cases at school where kids are going in with their friends and taking pictures over the bathroom stalls and compromising pictures, or just embarrassing pictures when a kid wouldn't want it, and spreading that. And once it's out there on the internet, it's hard to get it back, because screenshots, I always say screenshots live on forever. once they're out there, they're out there. And then of course there's the social disconnection that we see, where students are not as equipped these days with social skills, beyond all the other things we spoke about. It's just, there's just something that is a little bit missing, something that's a little bit off, and it's because they haven't had that real world practice. And like I said, they're more connected than ever before online, but they're rarely fully present, and very often they're more connected with people that they're not in the room with than the people they're actually in the room with. And that goes for us as adults as well. It's not just the kids. So since 2010, we see the rise of smartphone use. And this is what Jonathan Haidt refers to as the rise of the phone-based childhood, the great rewiring. Before that, it was more home computers, devices where they didn't have the entire internet in their pockets and able to just carry it with them everywhere. In 2012, that's when smartphones really took off. That's when the iPhone became very popular. And then that's also the time when Facebook purchased Instagram. And Facebook's purchase of Instagram specifically shifted culture of social media in a major way, where this influencer culture started, where kids and adults as well do everything to try to get that like, to try to look a certain way, to be a certain way, act a certain way, do everything for an audience. So you have this like 12-year-old child who really just needs to be learning how to be a good human, learn some Pythagorean theorem here and there, whatever they're learning at school, and they have this whole platform where they're trying to curate this content for their audience. And it's impacted girls and boys in different ways. Girls with social media and internet-based devices tend to fall more into self-esteem issues, depression, anxiety. And boys, it affects them more on the addictive nature and just the length of time they're spending on there. And then other sort of antisocial things related to that. It affects boys in more of an antisocial way, and they're more, not so much on necessarily Instagram and these social media sites as like Reddit, chat rooms, internet-based video games, and then what's the other one? Oh, pornography. I was like, I know there's a third. Yeah, pornography. Boys are way more addicted to that and get into that at a younger age. I heard a statistic that I should have written down the source because it's a pretty wild statistic, that as young as 8 years old, boys with complete, like full access to the internet, as young as 8, they're being exposed to their first hardcore pornographic images. And Jonathan Haidt does speak about that in great depth and talk about that. But again, it's that overprotection in the real world and underprotection in the virtual world. We think, oh, he's in his room, he's whatever, and he's over there starting an entire addiction to something else. So then 2020, we all remember probably very well. Actually almost wore a mask today because I was in a virtual meeting with somebody in New York who has the latest strand of COVID. It's called Razor COVID or something like that, and it hurts your throat. But anyways, I was like, that sounds terrible, but I might have to dust off the mask from that. But yeah, I'm just putting that to watch my time. So in 2020,
scrolling TikTok or anything.
no, yeah, let me check my Instagram feed. Yeah, in 2020, we saw this thing happen where an entire world really closed down, and kids did not attend school, and a lot of so around in this area, there was a whole generation of kids who just missed that kind of latter half of the year, which was the social aspect that they missed, the academics, all of that stuff. And so a lot of these things that I've spoken about that Jonathan Haidt mentions in this book, I attributed to COVID, because when it really started seeming intense was when we came back from COVID pandemic, the lockdown, and I was seeing these things more intense than before. And I was like, oh man, this pandemic really messed us over, and we have the great learning loss and all that, which is all true. But I realized what I would attribute to COVID actually is this, and it just got exponentially greater through COVID and all of that. Jonathan Haidt speaks about 4 foundational harms that are happening, and these are things that we're seeing amongst the kids that happened before COVID, that started around 2010 until now, and has gotten exponentially worse. They experience social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation. It's like a rap song, and addiction. But social deprivation, I think we have the idea about that. How, like I said, they feel more connected than ever before, but are actually not having a real communion or real community with anyone. Sleep deprivation. So I put the stat up there about 7 to 9 hours a day on a screen. Well, if you think about that, they're spending the vast majority of the day in school. So 7 to 9 hour cuts late into the night. And that's the average. There are kids who are spending all night on their screens. And I will say in the last, 5 years that I've been here in Cookeville, I have woken more students up in class than I have ever before. And again, I don't blame the kids for this. I try to encourage them to have better habits. But it's a constant thing in a classroom, and you can set the expectation of no sleeping. I personally don't deal with things in a punitive way, so I'm not going to kick a kid out or give them detention or something like that for sleeping. But it's really hard. So, I mean, I circulate and I'm constantly tapping people, just keeping them awake, because they're staying up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning on Fortnite, on video games, just scrolling TikTok endlessly. And so not only are they missing out on that sleep that's important for their development, like we all need sleep to be healthy humans, but then they're just falling asleep in class and they're literally unable to stay awake in the daytime. And attention fragmentation, it's very hard for our kids these days to stay focused. And I've even seen, there's these videos, you might have seen them online, where like it is,
While you're scrolling.
while you all are on your thing, there's 2 videos. One is like somebody talking, and the other one is like something else happening, like chopping apples or I don't know what, something like that. I've seen where teachers, to try to get the attention of these kids who are used to that type of thing, have started presenting their content in that way. Well, they'll turn on the video of like the chopping apples and they'll stand next to it and they'll talk, and they think like, because the kids are accustomed to this, let's use this to our advantage.
Does it work?
I don't think so, but we would have to ask them. But I don't know if they've experienced great results, but we try all kinds of things as teachers, and some work well and some fall.
I had a comment real quick, because we've been talking mostly about school-age children, but I work with preschool-age children. I work at my son's parents' day out. Before that, I was in the school system as a teacher assistant, and particularly touching on addiction. I've seen screen addiction in like 3-year-olds and younger. So
Yep.
I just want to it's starting very, very early. I would go out, went into classrooms, and they couldn't use a mouse. Forget typing. They couldn't use a mouse
Yep.
because all they had to do was
Yep.
do a tablet. And so I struggle with this with my own son and his attention as well. And I'm guilty of it as a parent. We need a haircut. Let's turn on Nightmare Before Christmas
Yeah.
so you can sit still for the hairstylist. Like, nobody's perfect in it, but I think it's important to remember that even preschool age, this is happening.
Oh, absolutely. And getting to we can go ahead, and that's a good segue into addiction. So moving to addiction, it's not just some, I guess like in research you have correlation and causation. It's not just some random correlation. It's actually causation. It's the thing that it was designed to do this. So these internet-based devices are designed to be addictive. And he speaks about this. And he says, like, this is not a mistake. They actually design these things to be addictive. They design them to take advantage of the dopamine rush. And they know what they're doing. They're targeting kids as young as babies, toddlers, and getting them hooked early so that they are already accustomed to that endless doom scroll. And one of the things he says that I really like is with the dopamine rush that we all experience. The dopamine will give you pleasure, but never satisfaction. So that rush will keep you on that scrolling thing, but you will never get to a point where, oh, that's enough. I've had enough now. So it's just this constant seeking out that pleasure with never being fully satisfied. And so it's keeping kids on there, and they're doing it on purpose. It's not by mistake. They actually study I'll get right there, but they study child psychology and human development, human psychology, and they exploit that to see how they can keep people on. And then they create, they literally design a feed to see how they can keep someone on there the longest. What are ways that we can do to keep it? And they even track our eye movement and stuff like that. And they see like, what are we more interested in? And you know too, even with like advertising, you'll say, oh, when's the last time I went to Shoney's? And the next thing you're on Facebook and it's like, Shoney's. And it's like, what? I haven't been to Shoney's in 40 years. But yeah, did you have something to say?
Oh, it sounds like you've already seen it, but I was gonna mention, if you hadn't seen it already, a documentary called The Social Dilemma.
Oh.
It speaks exactly to this. They do interviews with people who've left Facebook, Google, Meta, Yahoo, all of these tech giants, talking about
Yep.
how all of our YouTube, Amazon has been programmed intentionally to make us, even adults, addicted and scroll endlessly.
Absolutely, and it came out specifically with Meta, where they turned against Mark Zuckerberg and exposed all that. But yeah, that's a great documentary.
Yeah, I just, this article is kind of old now, and I don't know if it's true anymore. It was like 2016 or so when it came out, but there are a lot of tech folks that send their kids to schools that don't allow
Yep.
technology.
Waldorf.
Yeah, and that just made me really angry.
Yeah, and that and Steve Jobs, all of these big tech people always said, I would never give my child a smartphone. I would never expose my kid to this.
But
And
then they put it in our schools.
exactly, they put it in our schools. They're very willing to use that same psychology that they're against to exploit our children. This book is called The Disengaged Teen. I highly recommend it for parents and for, I think I'm giving a copy away. Yeah. So if you haven't put your name in the thing, put your name over there. But for teachers, parents, it's a great book. And it talks about modes of engagement, 4 modes of engagement. And they have one chapter on tech and like the impact that tech has on children. I do think they underplay a little bit the damage that technology does. They kind of, where Jonathan Haidt is going hard, they're kind of more light on that. But it is a really great chapter. So this little section where they're specifically talking about tech companies' exploitation of kids, and they're even saying like, use this as a way to speak to kids about technology. Don't tell them it's bad for you, it's harming you. Kids don't care about that. But especially this generation, if you're like, the man is exploiting you, big tech is using you as a tool, they are controlling you, then the kids are like, wait a minute, what? One of the best ways to help teens increase their power over tech is to help them understand the starring role they play in big tech's bottom line. Helping them understand why they should want to exert some control over how they use tech can often be a better use of your time and theirs. Are you using tech, or is tech using you? This is the line that award-winning poet and storyteller Max Stossel asks teens when he talks to them, which is a lot. So he says, are you using technology, or is it using you? Then after that, he asked the kids, he says, he asked how many of them have snap streaks. And for those who don't know, on Snapchat, there's a thing called a snap streak, and you send an image to your contact, and if you do that every day, you start a streak. So if me and Catherine have started a streak and we've done this for 30 days, we would have a 30-day streak. If one of us doesn't send an image to each other one day, we lose the streak and it's over. And so kids will have streaks in the thousands with their friends and contacts. But then there's this pressure, and you'll see kids literally with like hundreds and thousands of contacts. They'll just take a random picture and they'll be frantically trying to share it to keep their streaks. So he asked how many of them have snap streaks. Hundreds of hands shoot up. How many of you have taken pictures of your ceiling just to keep a streak? Almost all hands stay up. How many of you want to stop? The hands stay up. Isn't that amazing, he says? We spend our time doing something we don't have to do don't want to do, but feel compelled to do. Stossel is empathetic, not judgmental. He knows that having a snap streak with a friend feels important, a way of feeling popular, and that you matter. It feels real, he says. So again, it's that feeling of connection, but nothing real, and it has a hold over them, and they're like literally addicted to it. I saw a screen doing something weird
So
behind me.
these kids know what the man is, and they don't like it any more than we did?
Yeah. They understand it in different ways. But more than anything, especially middle school age and high school age kids, they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't like authority figures. They don't want to be bossed around. So if we approach it in a different way and we're like, first of all, this is for your best interest. It's good for your health. But also, you're being exploited. And they are making money off of you. A lot of money. Billions of dollars, and we will remain very poor for most of our lives.
What is the plan to get that kind of messaging to the students, especially since we're now asking them to lock up their phones?
Yeah, so I've spoken with Putnam County Schools and said, like, we need to really get ahead of this narrative and really work on that. It's something that I'm trying to work with them on developing. They have a series of videos they're doing with students with some like major, I will say, undesirable behaviors like vaping, poor attendance, and things like that. So one of those video series is going to be about this. So that's how we will kind of angle that message to speak to them. But yeah, I'm trying to work with them to figure that out. So.
You know, it's not just, we're talking about social media being bad, but I observed this in my niece's children in the last week. They don't let them on social media, but they're addicted to games. Like even just getting the games away from them, you know, you couldn't do that. And so, you know, that's just as bad as saying, well, I don't let them on social media.
Yep.
But yet they put the iPad in their hand and let them play games for hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So his the four main things that he speaks about. If we can't do anything else, these are the major reforms that Jonathan Haidt refers to. He says it takes collective action to bring this type of change, and everybody doesn't have to do it. But if the vast majority of people did this, it would work. And he says, no smartphones until 14 years old. So that's 9th grade. No smartphones whatsoever. And yeah, so that's that. No social media before 16. So social media, kids should not be on social media at all until 16. No phone schools. So he says the entire school day should be phone free. There should be no phones in school. And we're already on the road to that with the new law. And then an increase and a push for unstructured, unsupervised play. Now, you're very right that a lot of, it's not just social media. Like I said, especially with boys, they go more into the video games, but girls do as well. And there is like crossover for both. But yeah, that's, it's all of these internet-based devices. And he roughly defines this. He talks about phone-based childhood, but he defines it. He says, when I speak about a phone-based childhood, I'm not just speaking about smartphones. I'm talking about internet-based devices, personal devices that can be carried anywhere, where the kid has constant access to the internet and the internet has constant access to them. Did you?
Well, I was going to comment
Okay.
about that maybe a recommendation too for messaging for children and for everyone is through these community-wide book studies that Ryan is spearheaded and we're doing all over. That's one way we're getting messaging out, also to children.
Yeah,
is-
absolutely. And a really cool thing, in December, they are launching a youth version of this book, The Anxious Generation. It's called something like the Awesome Generation. So they've positively framed it. But yeah, it's specifically geared towards youth, and that's the whole purpose of it, is to speak to them. So once we kind of get the parents and the adults in the community on board, because I do feel like it starts with us getting this grounding in knowledge, then possibly in the spring we can move to a book study that focuses on the youth.
Well, my kids are 14 now, and I've fought against this for years, and I don't want to give my kids and so I want to, like, I love that you had said at least 14, and
Yeah.
I'd love to get more parents doing the at least, because my kids are still really not mature enough to
Yeah.
handle internet based device. And
Yeah.
and they're missing out, and they're lonely a lot of the time because
Yep.
their peers are on devices.
Yes, and he speaks about that whole thing is that it's hard and the pressure of a parent, because the pressure of kids and parent that like you make a decision, but the entire friend group has phones and they get together and all the kids are doing this and your kid's like, what am I supposed to do? And feels left out. So he talks about areas that have what he says, wait till 8th, but he says really it should be wait till 9th, but that doesn't have the ring to it that wait till 8th does. But it's a wait till 9th pledge where community members and parents and families say, we will wait until 9th grade to give our kid a smartphone, and you sign the pledge and then everybody's aware of who it is. And then you have these pockets of friend groups where you know, like this group of kids, this group of families has committed to this idea. And so we have that, it's on the website as well, Restoring Childhood,
So do you think
PutnamCounty.com.
that'll be bumped even higher maybe? Wouldn't it be great to say wait till 12?
It would be great. I mean, it would be really great. And he's also, again, parents are like, but I need something, my kid has extracurricular activities, I need to get a hold of them. I've put out a thing for coaches to say, like, we need to not rely on this quick, instant responses. You have to develop other ways of contacting parents, and don't use kids and don't use smartphones of the kids. But I do think eventually we will continue to push it. But right now, for many people, especially those who've already kind of given in 4th, 5th grade, it's hard to take that back. So I think this is a very achievable step. And then from there we can look and say, like, okay, can we push that? Can we keep going? And
One grade a year.
yeah, every year, like next year, it's wait till 10th.
Wait till you're 30. Wait till
So just, I know we're getting out of time. Is that true? We're running out of time?
I don't know that we have anything behind you.
No, we don't have
so-
anything else, so take
You
your
can-
time.
Well, I think everybody's tired of hearing me
Sure.
talk, so there's that. But
You can take questions.
so yeah, we what I would like to emphasize is that what Jonathan Haidt emphasizes is you read this book and it's a lot of very good information. Like I said, it was stuff as a teacher, as a parent that I already knew, but it was like, oh, this is deeper than I thought. Like it's more than what I even knew. And it goes deeper. So it's great information, but it also can feel hopeless when you just take in the information. But what's great is the whole last part of this book is about collective change. And he says, yes, this is a dire situation. Yes, it needs to be intervened with. But the good news is, with collective action, we can see a shift. And there are areas in our country and schools who have done this and seen positive change. And even the kids themselves who were used to being on phones and then suddenly had to be without them, when all is said and done, after a time off, they were like, I feel better. And I think we all, like anybody, how many people here are on some form of social media, Facebook, Instagram? And so if you've been on there, and especially with this like polarizing climate we live in right now with political stuff, it can feel just like wild. And you post something and then people are saying all this stuff. And then you spend a day or 2 days, and the more days, the better. And then you feel like, oh, that's something that I really actually don't need in my life. And then you're like, oh, I want to see what so-and-so's doing with their kids. And then you get on there and you get back in there again. But you can feel, like if you spend time away from it, you can feel what happens. So imagine for kids, when that's all they've known, what it feels like to be kind of forced to cold turkey, like, let's get you off
And
of
to
here.
be 12.
Oh yeah, 12. And just in your middle school is the hardest time of life. It's so hard. And adding all of this on it just complicates things.
So, I don't know if it's time for questions yet, but the whole quotation, restoring childhood, is this going on all over the United States, or did
No,
you start it?
I started this. So this is, oh, look at that. That's
Cream City.
but yeah, I started this just as for us as a community to give it a name. It's not an NGO, it's not a business, it's just an
So
initiative at
has
the moment.
anybody contacted you from other places and say, we want to do this?
Yeah, so Rutherford County, Grundy County,
Awesome.
William, there's like, I was just writing them down today. Several counties in Tennessee have contacted me and wanted to be a part.
But not any other states yet?
No states. One of our Instagram
When did it make
posts.
you go viral?
Yeah, that's like the counter. They like the guy getting rid of cell phones goes viral about getting rid of cell phones. But yeah, so this is just for us. And before we do wrap up, I know you had a question, but I'm gonna just talk about like what we want to do, and then we can discuss questions and things. But the idea is to get this information, because I feel like I said, when we know better, we do better. And I want to give everybody the opportunity to make their own decisions. But to make informed decisions, we need the information. So I thought, like, let's get this whole community to read this book. And I want it to be as accessible as possible. So I have 7 formats of how it will be, from school-based studies to like small group home studies that people can lead, to churches, businesses, the library, plenty. Radio stations are all going to have different versions. And I'll have a virtual model online. But yeah, I want to get people exposed, whether they're a struggling reader like I have been and always was, or someone who never has read before, to people who like are college professors who want to engage on the deepest levels. We want to get people talking about this. It is on the website, Restoring Childhood, PutnamCounty.com. And on the Facebook, we do have Facebook and Instagram, though I've said over and over, I think it's counterintuitive, but it's necessary.
That's how we found out about it.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's,
100%.
yeah, so it's good. It serves a purpose. And again, I'm using technology and it's not using me, and I feel like that's what we're doing here. So, but yeah, the idea is to get as many people as possible to host a book study, even if it's just you and a couple of your friends getting together reading it, or if you're a part of a church that the whole congregation is going to. I know you're going to do one at the Methodist Church. The library has 4 different versions that Catherine is now like, oh, why did I commit to all these? But yeah, but the idea is to get as many people as possible to read this. I have to make it easier, a small group study guide that I created. And so first of all, for people who feel nervous about facilitating, I created just this little how to create group norms, tips for hosting and things like that people can use if they feel uncomfortable. And then each session is broken down, and I just have like general questions that can be used, just every time, and then kind of content specific ones, and a family challenge that the families or the people that are a part of it can go away and try it, and then come back and be like, well, we tried the screen-free day and it did not work, or it was the best day of our lives, or whatever. The book study, I've broken it up into a 16-week model that skips over the 2 weeks of fall break. But the first and last one are like introduction to the movement and a debrief of the whole thing. And then besides that, it's just one chapter of the book per week. Individuals are more than welcome to adjust it to their own time schedules. I think yours is like
We're doing 8. We're doing 8.
8, yeah, so every other week, once a month, whatever works for you. And then along with these book studies, there are also 5 in-person sessions hosted in local schools where we will have a summary of that section of the book, just to present the information, a real brief summary of that. I know after hearing me ramble for an hour, you think, yeah, right, brief, but a keynote speaker who will speak on a specific related topic to that section of the book. And then we'll have a town hall discussion with a panel of local experts who can speak specifically to that section of the book. That will be 5 ones that are scattered within the scope and sequence of the 16 weeks that hit on the 4 parts of the book.
So do you foresee young people coming to these sessions, or does you think it's just going to be adults?
For now, my main focus is adults. Though I would like for these sessions, but I've put it up to the schools who are hosting. They have no responsibility whatsoever beyond just hosting it. But I did say if their school-based coalition would like to offer art session, music, play in the gym, whatever, while the adults are listening, that's up to them. But nobody has specifically confirmed that yet. But for now, I want to start with the adults, because if we can get the adults on board and we can get the adults to agree to put some of these steps in place for their families, it'll be all the more easier with the kids when we really start that side of things.
How many schools are doing this in their school for their teachers?
Every single school. I beat down their doors for the last few weeks. Every single school has a school-based coalition, at least one member. Now, some of the schools are more active than others, but every Putnam County school, including White Plains and Vital, have a school-based coalition. And ones that are kind of on the forefront and very active are Prescott Elementary, Middle, Cane Creek, I've received emails from them, Capshaw, Parkview, Avery Trace, Allgood Elementary. Allgood Elementary has a big one. And the high school just had a meeting over the summer with their, so it's received a good, and they will create whatever works for their school communities. But yeah, so that's the main idea. These are the things that we already kind of have going on. We have the Facebook community has grown pretty big, and Instagram. We have our community coalition of around 200 local people, from teachers to admin to board members, medical professionals, professors, parents who are trying to guide this. We have our school-based coalitions. We have community partners like the library, Plenty. Stone Calm just came on and really has promised a lot of great, wonderful stuff. And then once we have kind of grounded everything in this book study, along with it, what I am working on, Facebook, and like you said, you saw it on Facebook, it's part of the awareness campaign. But we'll start with direct action groups, which will specifically look at different areas of the community, from infrastructure to education to health, all the different aspects of the community, to look at how we can decrease screen time and increase presence and increase unstructured, unsupervised play in our community, from the physical structure of our community to the ways that we interact with each other. So I really do feel, this is gonna be real dramatic, it's gonna go so slow, but we've had these moments of social change throughout history. When I was a kid, it wasn't too long before that seatbelts were introduced, and there was a lot of pushback, like, you can't make me wear a seatbelt, and all that. And sure enough, we're all wearing seatbelts now. And the same with smoking. I mean, I grew up, the bowling alley, you would walk out smelling like an ashtray, and people still smoke here, but in public and in public spaces, it's not allowed anymore. And it seemed impossible when I was a kid. I mean, I was 12 smoking. Like everybody smoked, and it was everywhere. It seemed impossible. And then we brought change, and it happened, and now we can't even imagine it the other way. I couldn't imagine going in a hospital, an airplane, a restaurant right now, and being in a cloud of smoke. But that was my childhood, but I couldn't imagine it now. So I do feel like this is our seatbelt moment, and this is our moment. This is gonna dramatically, why did I do this dramatic trend? But I do feel like this is our moment with this to really make a difference. Let's see what dramatic one is gonna happen here. Well, so, but yeah, if you would like to be involved in any sort of way, please feel free to contact me. The easiest way, where everything is all in one place, is restoringchildhoodputnamcounty.com. That's our website, and it has my email, it has various things we're doing, it has some of the forms to sign up for a book study, to the Wait Till 9th pledge is on there. You can access the digital version of this, but I also have hard copies, so if you want that, I can get it to you. We have these signs that we're encouraging businesses, churches, schools to hang up. We have two versions, so we have no phone zone for like the children's area of the library or the schools now, which are high schools and middle schools are supposed to be no phone zones. It's just a hard boundary, like no phones allowed. And then we have the one for coffee shops, restaurants, or whatever, where it's called present place. So we're not saying, it's more of a gentle nudge. So it's like, we understand you might need your phone out, you might even be here to just sit on your phone the whole time. But we're encouraging you to be mindful of that and try to be present. So if you'd like to get some of those to hang up in your business, school, church, whatever it may be, that's fine. And we have some yard signs, which I only have a few because they printed these for us for free, which was very nice. Out the door printing, thank you. I don't know if this is still on video, but thank you. But yeah, just to kind of get in some key places and make sure that kind of we spread the word about it. And yeah, the library has copies of the book. Plenty is, if you purchase a book at Plenty, the money though, the book is $30, so it's expensive. Some people have found it cheaper on other places. But if you buy it at Plenty, it goes back into this community because Plenty is a nonprofit and they have all kinds of programs and things that they're doing and organizations that they support and initiatives. So if you purchase it from Plenty, it goes back to a good cause. So there's that. Let's see what's next. Oh yeah, there you go. So there's the social media if you want to do that. But yeah, reach out anytime. If you would like to start a book study, I would really encourage it, but also encourage you to encourage others to do so. Again, it doesn't have to be some elaborate thing where you commit to 16 weeks. You can say we'll meet once a month and we're just going to kind of vaguely discuss it and just have it on the table, and hopefully osmosis it'll come to like whatever it may be, but just committing to getting together and discussing it is the huge step. So yes, ma'am.
I've asked a lot of questions. So I think I've signed up to be what you've called a coalition member?
Yes.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So our community coalition, so we have the school-based coalitions that will work to hopefully facilitate book studies and then improve their school when it comes to reducing screen time and increasing unstructured play. The community coalition right now is just a group of people who, one, identify this is an issue and I think it needs to be changed, and two, commit to being a part of that change, no matter how big or small, and I don't think there's a such thing as big and small, but whatever. It looks like in your corner of the community, and just being an advocate and a spokesperson for it as you go in life, and then whatever you can commit beyond that is great. Once we get the book study going and people, it's growing, hopefully the coalition will be able to shift into people signing up for direct action groups, and then we have actual regular meetings that focus on specific tangible points of action of change in our community. But for now, the coalition is kind of just a group of people where people can see the list and go, oh, Mayor Lauren Wheaton is on here. Oh, Catherine Weisinger, oh, I gotta get her autograph, she's on here. You know, and see a wide range of people from the community, and also a bipartisan list of people. Because there are a lot of polarizing issues in our community, in our nation right now. This is a bipartisan issue. It impacts everybody, and there's no political affiliation of who it impacts. And so to see a group of community members who normally would not agree on one single thing, agreeing to that, I think is a powerful thing. Yes, sir, sorry.
Where do you think artificial intelligence fits in this whole thing? Because that to me is, we've lost the cell phone battle. There's a bigger thing coming down. If you don't capture AI, yeah, you're in a lot of trouble. Yeah, it's, I do not like it. It also is frustrating because, you know, you can see if somebody used ChatGPT, if you see the little M dash a lot of times, someone who uses ChatGPT, but I've always used that in my writing. And now that they're like, oh, you can tell it's ChatGPT because they use the M dash, and I'm like, no, I love the M dash. But what I'm seeing in the school community is like, again, what I spoke about, how kids are not wanting to struggle, not wanting to, it's even easier for them. So they can literally put an essay prompt in ChatGPT, and within seconds, the full essay is written for them. Now, I can see that it's ChatGPT. I know, you know, that that's not their work. But you even see teachers, I saw this thing, this video the other day of a guy saying, we've gotten to a point where teachers are creating assignments on AI, kids are using AI to do the assignments, and teachers are using AI to assess the assignments. And so we're completely taking the human part of the process out of it altogether, from the creation to the assessment to the looking at it. So I don't think it's a good direction. And I do think schools need to, I personally, in my classrooms, try to stay off of computers as much as possible. I did this series on
a specific type of essay I was teaching near the end of the school year, and my first intro was like, all right, put the Chromebooks away, go ahead and plug them up, we won't need them in this class. And they were like, oh, and I said, get out a paper, I hate to tell you this, you're going to be handwriting this. And some of them had never done that, like they had never written a first draft, and they're like, my hand hurts, Mr. Dalton. I'm like, you'll be okay. But I think the more we can move away from it, when we're using it as a supplement or a tool, that's good. But again, is it using us or are we using it? And yeah, that's what it comes down to. Summary, I don't think it's a good direction. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, you don't have to think.
Yeah,
It
you
takes
don't.
away your thinking.
Yeah, well, and so what's interesting, for someone who doesn't know a topic, they can put something into ChatGPT and get something that sounds amazing to them. But someone who knows about the topic reads it and they're like, this is not right. Like, this is not correct. And so it's feeding into that whole thing of like misinformation and the spreading of misinformation, and it's not good. So.
I have one other question. What about, screen time for special needs community? I mean, that's kind of a calming thing for them to get everything under control.
Absolutely. I've actually, I'm working on a book study specifically tailored for parents of kids on the autism spectrum disorder with their kids. But there is another one that they might be trying to start somewhere in town as well for just general special needs. But that is a tough one.
Through Life Church.
I'm not sure. They haven't contacted me, but it could be. But it's hard because I'm a huge advocate. I'm a special education teacher, so I'm a huge advocate for assistive technology when it is assistive. For a student who's dyslexic to be able to use a Chrome extension that changes every font on their computer so they can actually read it easy, I love that. That's great. But if it's technology that is pushing them further, and especially an already disenfranchised group that's already prone to be pushed aside, if it's pushing them further into a device and away from socialization, that's where it's like, it becomes like, and it's a personal thing. I cannot speak for parents, and I can't speak to or for parents who are doing the best they can to support their kids in whatever way they can. And so for some children on the spectrum or other learning disabilities, a device is their escape. A device is the thing that makes them feel like they belong, and that's a great thing. But if it gets to the point where they're diving deeper into the device and missing out on actual opportunities to socialize with peers, then that's where it becomes tricky. But it's also not I'm trying to be very mindful of not stepping into areas that I don't personally, like I'm a special education teacher, but I'm not a parent of a child with special needs. And so I have a person who will lead that group and talk about that, because it's really not for me to decide. It's for parents who are going through that to figure it out and talk together and say, well, this worked for me, this did not work for me, this is what my kid needs, and figure it out. But I do have a group that's starting to form, if you're interested. So if you didn't get your name, and it's not a raffle. This is a nonprofit, not a raffle. It's a drawing, not a raffle. But get your name in one of these. Did everybody get a chance to get your name in? I can just draw the names. Okay. You didn't? Okay. We'll get that in and I'll draw these. And then I'll release you. Yeah, should I shake it? Okay. Do you want anxious generation or supplementary texts? Okay, so we'll put you in supplementary. So I'll draw the anxious generation face. Oh, that was like a martini or something. Okay. Tina Stout. Okay. Yeah.
Or you want me in the other drawing?
Put it in there?
Yeah. And just give that to someone else.
Oh, you sure? So you want to go to which one of these do you want?
What's the titles? I can't see them.
There's Last Child in the Woods, which is about getting kids back in nature and what they're missing out on. There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather. It's by a Danish, I think it's Danish.
Danish weather.
Yeah, and talking about getting them out in the bad weather. Free Range Kids, which is about the whole unstructured, unsupervised play. Really good book. He actually writes some of the chapters with her. And then Disengaged Teen that I read from.
Let me try that one.
All right, can you pass that
I have
back?
Snapchat, addicted teenager.
Okay, perfect.
No way.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be good.
he's on his.
All right, this is Anxious Generation. Hannah Kinmonth.
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah, in my plan, I actually have one, but I was gonna use it to give to somebody
Yeah,
else.
that's great. Yeah, do it. Throw it on the streets. Just, yeah, there we go. Okay. I like the clapping. That's fine. Okay. Tammy Mansell. Oh, heck. Yeah, there. The clapping makes it so much more like an award. Okay. What kind of is? All right, I have two. Kara
Perky.
Perky, and Daniel Graves. Oh wow, side by side. Yep. Okay, we got two more. She traveled the farthest side. Okay. Oh, Teddy Samples. There we go. And Marsha. Ooh.
Oh, that's Marsha.
Oh, Marsha. Marsha. Okay.
That's already happened. So
Okay.
you can join that.
Okay, join that in. And Becky Smith. Oh, okay. And then we have three more books. Sorry, I'm holding you hostage today. So you're being held hostage by devices. All right. Okay. There we go. We have Christy Epic. Would you like? Let me have a look. Oh, are those upside down? Sorry. Oh yeah, good choice. All right, two more. Last Child in the Woods and Free Range Kids. 1, 2. Okay. Susan Sparks. No.
You gotta be
She
present.
disappeared. Daniel Graves.
I already
Oh, you got one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is
You can
very
still clap
dramatic.
for me.
Abby.
Hey!
Yeah. Okay, and this is the other one. Which one do you want? Last Child in the Woods or Free Range Kids?
Last child in the woods.
Okay, there you go. Do you mind passing that? I know that's harsh to like make people pass the free book. Oh, this was an already winner. Okay. Okay. Oh, another already winner. Sorry. Is it Tanika Burgess?
Yeah.
Okay. Good thing you didn't leave the room. Okay. And yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you.